Welcome back to the Direct Insurance Podcast. Get ready for a major upgrade as we kick off Season 2. Introducing your new hosts, the Insurance Buddies, Jason McLellan, Will Smallwood, Andy Daster, and Richard Buffkin. This season, we're diving deep into the world of health and life insurance with no holds barred. Expect a wild ride filled with knowledge, insights, and maybe even a little fun. Let's get ready to dip into some insurance. Here's your host, Jason McLellan.
All right, I'll kick it off introducing myself, Jason McLellan with Insurance Advisors Direct. I'm the president and CEO. I've been in the insurance industry now since 1997. You guys help me do math. What would that be? 27 years now. Worked with these gentlemen for many of those years. So excited to be here on this podcast, but both played in different worlds. Worked as an agent for a few years, also on the FMO brokerage side for most of those years at a large national organization, and then started Insurance Advisors Direct about 12 years ago. We service independent agents around the country through life and health products, full platform of services as a full FMO. So just as a quick introduction, that's who I am. And I'll turn it over to the next Andy.
My name is Andy Daster. I'm president of North American Insurance Services, about 33 years in the business. I run one of the largest independent insurance marketing organizations that's independent from Wall Street and insurance companies. We specialize in health insurance for individuals, families, seniors like Medicare, small employers, and then we sort of dabble in the financial products like life insurance, annuities, long-term care. We're about 3,500 independent insurance agents located in all 50 states. Under 65, over 65 group is probably 95% the organization. Will
Smallwood, president of American Eagle Consultants. I've been in the business. Jason's got me edged out by a couple years. So I started in 1999 when I was 18, so a little younger. We've been doing this for 25 years. So started out selling door to door the old way, figuring out whose houses had somebody over 65 and knocking on it and trying to get in and pitch a Medicare supplement. So it started in the agency while in college, grown that. We've had both a captive distribution as well as your traditional brokerage, which is really what we are today. We deal primarily in Medicare side, but we specialize in med final expense, but really have kind of, branched out the last several years, do acquisitions and stuff such as that, where we do a lot of under 65 business, group business as well.
Expense, life insurance, long-term care, the whole gamut.
All right, perfect. Let's dive in. I think our first subject here we were talking about, since we all just got back from attending the Medicarians Conference in Vegas, just kind of going through it. What did we pick up from that? Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the Medicare space, especially related to, a lot related to product. I think in our world, we think more about the commission side of things. Maybe Richard in his world, he thinks a little bit more about the marketing side of it. So maybe we all walked away with a little different angle. Did you guys get a chance to go to many of the events or hear many of the speakers?
I've certainly selectively picked, a handful of presentations that I thought were relevant and interesting, especially depending on who the speaker was. But make no mistake, not to kind of jump ahead, the vast majority of my value in attending these is being able to connect with people all at the same place, all at the same time, as opposed to getting face-to-face with people in 20 different cities. It's certainly a much more efficient way of connecting with people and talking about what's on their mind and what's on my mind. In terms of sessions, though, clearly the topic was all about CMS regs. I mean, in the hallways, in the convention hall, in the meetings, I think CMS regs dominated from my perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With all the new proposals, obviously that was going to be hot in everyone's mind. And, I think that's what we'll probably spend some time on today is just sharing the opinions. I think we just got a lot of professional opinions of what's meant by those new rules, how they will be applied, all of that may matter to us. So anybody else hit any sessions that were worthwhile?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of similar to what it was 10 years ago with call centers kind of getting into the senior market. I feel like AI was a heavy topic. People using it for different functions, whether it's lead gen, customer service, just tracking, recorded calls and identifying, ways to go about it that end up the results that you're looking for. So, I remember 10 years ago, everybody kind of whispered about call centers and they're going to get into Medicare. And then it became, the tsunami that came through. And I kind of feel like AI is kind of following that same process where we're starting to hear a little bit about this year, because last year you didn't hear anything. Year before you didn't hear nothing at all about it. And this year it was definitely a topic of conversation on a lot of those breakout sessions.
Yeah. Richard, you were busy because you had a booth there too.
Yeah, a couple of things just on Will's point. One big thing is the one-to-one record keeping of when you get leads and maintaining that one-to-one record. And your CRM should do that. You should be keeping records of that. And the AI, so there are some really cool tools there that help maximize that and store it into perpetuity. But back like Will said, this felt for the first time in several years more like 10 years ago, where there was a lot more agent interaction, whereas the last several years it felt like it was just really business to business occurring there, and less business to agents happening. And the conversations that we had were much more meaningful on a business development side, where it was more of having, okay, what are you guys doing differently? How can you help me generate leads, et cetera? Versus the last few years, it really just felt like, a fraternity party of the guys that, we've all known for 15, 20 years. And, we're all staring at each other and the same guys that we've known forever, same people we've known forever. Whereas it felt like there's a lot of new people in the industry. Yeah, that was a big takeaway from us. It felt like there's a lot of new blood in the room.
No, I agree. Well, I was even thinking back to last year. I was a little disappointed, and I know, hey, it was kind of just being transitioned over from when Jesse had started it. Jesse did a great job for all those years. Now we had new ownership. I felt like last year they lost some of the sizzle because they purposely discouraged agents from coming. So, that was kind of a big component. We used to exhibit at those, and we looked at like, well, who are we exhibiting to if you're not going to invite agents? So I think this year they probably spent more time incorporating sessions that were, maybe agent interest. And then they did a good job at, keeping the industry stuff, out there for all of us from a networking standpoint, getting to sit and meet with some of our key partners, whether it be the carriers, other industry, professionals and organizations. I saw probably twice as many exhibitors this year. And it wasn't just insurance. They were all different avenues of maybe even parts and pieces that might service the insurance industry. So I was impressed. I think the attendance was much better. The energy was better. More people showed up, gave us more opportunities to sit and meet with industry professionals, people we work with, friends that we haven't seen in a while. Sessions were stronger. I didn't like the sessions that were inside of the exhibit space. I thought that was a little too busy and a little too noisy. But all in all, I think they did a great job at just the core of it, and definitely would, looking forward to the next one.
I definitely think the facilities were better too. MGM was just big. It's just, I felt like it was much more intimate. It was more about the Medicarians versus 7 other, trade shows that are all taking place the same place.
And that's despite the fact that there's probably damn near double the number of attendees versus last year. So yeah, it felt intimate, even though the group was so much bigger.
Yeah, I agree. Much better.
One of the other things that I thought was really interesting is that when you go back and look at the agenda, like 33% of the sessions were on the ACA. So I don't know if that's an ominous thing or, an opportunity, but it seemed like, there was a big desire for people to learn more and more about that.
Yeah.
As I think, Medicare agents are continuing or really looking for other avenues more than they have in years past. And that was a really striking thing for us.
Yeah. And I will say I was a little disappointed in that part because they never really promoted it, at least not to our channel. So I didn't know about it. I saw it later on in the agenda. Then I found out it was happening. It was heavily attended. I heard it was a packed house. In fact, agents couldn't even get in, or individuals couldn't get in. But I guess it was a whole separate cost, and it's kind of its own deal that just piggybacked the Medicarians part of it. but they really didn't do a good job promoting. That was the only disappointment I had, because if I had known, I would have shown up, because obviously, us, our agents, we've become a lot more involved in the under 65 space, and to not know what was going on was kind of a disappointment.
They had a charge. There was a different charge to get into those.
That's what I heard. I heard it was a whole separate charge, whole different event. I even talked to a couple carrier reps locally here in Michigan that I had attended, but they left right after because it was just like a one-day thing.
So, and I didn't see anybody, or hardly anybody, in the exhibit hall that were ACA carriers or even ACA vendors. It seemed like 99% was senior, and the only one I saw was Ambetter. I didn't see any other ACA carrier even there, and not even under 65 carriers, even your Manhattans or your Pivots or any of those companies. It was all senior.
Well, let's face it, maybe it was just a test. Maybe they just figured, hey, let's throw this out there. Let's give it a try and see if we get some traction, and then, make it a bigger thing for next year. So I guess, on the horizon, maybe that's a thing. Maybe next year we'll see an extra day or two added on for under 65 and, give us opportunities to hit both of them.
I definitely can see that, because there's starting to be a lot more cross-pollinating.
Yeah.
Agents are selling both. It used to be you were either over or under 65. Nobody was blue up. And now it seems like a lot of people are starting to try to mix those markets together.
Yeah.
It feels like the ownership did a good job of listening to feedback from the last 2 years. And I think that's probably why they had those sessions in the exhibit hall. Because the last 2 years, there was really zero draw to have people in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know that my staff said that those sessions were definitely beneficial to driving traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was like, that's a loud place to be having these talks.
Yeah.
And, I get your point. And I also do think that the ownership's listening to the feedback that they got. And that may also be a part of why the ACA was included, because people are like, hey, we want to know about this too. And they're like, great, well, let's try to do it. I mean, they're definitely taking this business very seriously.
Good. No, that's
in the last 3 years, after, going into every one, we're like, is this the last one? Are we going to be here next year? I know Will and I have had this conversation, am I coming back next year? And then at the end of it, you're like, yep, totally worthwhile. Yeah. And I think that's probably a good segue to what happens outside of the conference.
No, it's better.
In the way that the Fountain Blue is set up, with bar being so central, that open shaped bar being so central to the whole complex, that it was just such a natural meeting place for everyone to be. Whereas the MGM, there's 5 really cool bars, that whiskey one that we went to. And, so everyone was kind of scattered about, whereas everyone was in the same place, from 9 o'clock to midnight. And, for me, that's worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I agree. I think, was it last year or the year before, where it was literally like 2 sides of the room. One was integrity and one was AmeriLife. It was just like, they own the whole exhibit.
That was Atlanta. I remember that being in Atlanta.
Yeah, we're like, well, what's the point of even walking in here? We know these guys, great. And then, I think, I went through the process, like, talk to you guys. Hey, you guys going? If you guys are going, I'll go, because it'll be fun. But if you're not going, is it really worth, spending the time? I think this year, the answer is it's definitely well worth it from the event standpoint. And then, get to see you guys too.
Yeah. What do you think from an agent perspective? I certainly agree.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I got a significant return on my investment of money and time. I feel really good about it. And yes, we had a lot of fun too. But from an agent perspective, the agents, I think I had about a dozen of them from my organization that went. And most of the feedback I heard was they were overwhelmed. There was just a lot of stuff that was going on. The sessions were just overwhelming. The exhibit hall was overwhelming. I mean, I don't know if they would even really know how to navigate those. That was my only feedback I heard from agents. And I don't know what I would do if I would recommend agents go to these things or not. It's not the cheapest thing to do. I don't know.
I think I wouldn't discourage an agent from going. I wouldn't say, hey, it's not worth your time. I would just maybe, give them a little bit of a introduction to it. Like, hey, here's what to expect. Maybe somebody, if it's their first conference, I could see that being pretty overwhelming regardless. And they have a ton of sessions going on. And you look at the sessions, and sometimes they're stacked where you're like, well, all 4 of these look really good, but they can't go to all 4. So what do I do? And then they had the main session going on. They had the exhibit hall There was networking. I do think there's a lot going on, but again, I think they're trying to keep many of us with different needs occupied. So I would tell agents, I think it's worth it if they keep this format. If you'd asked me that like last year, the year before, I'd say don't waste your time. But that would be my answer to an agent.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think it's the education factor of it and just the exposure to things that the average, person out there selling insurance don't even think about. I mean, just all the technology aspects of it, just all the changes coming. I mean, sometimes everybody puts their blinders on and they're so focused on one or two things that they do every day, they totally ignore all these possibilities that could really help them in the long run. So really take it in. And that's why I wish they kind of would do. I remember back in the old days, they saw, first time attendee pricing versus, regular pricing. If they did stuff like that for agents, to help incentivize them to come. Because at the end of the day, without the agents, there's nothing for us to be doing. I mean,
it's a good idea. I mean,
we used to get like 50 registration was like half off. Well, we as an exhibitor and a supporter, and these were the Jesse days, so let's say back then it was 500, our clients would go for 300.
Yeah.
What was an individual ticket? Is it a grand to get in there?
This year it was like what, 1,500 or something?
Yeah, 1,500. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot for an agent.
Did Richard ever share those discounts with you guys?
I know I got Will in there for free every year.
Just Will.
Nice.
Will walked in with 3.
I wasn't going to say nothing, Richard.
Will's like, I got 3 discount passes. Does that give me them for free?
Oh,
that's perfect. That's a good idea.
I think of the feedback. I haven't seen requests for feedback yet. I know they sent out the recordings, but that's probably a valuable thing to tell them. Like, hey man, 1,500 is a lot for a typical Medicare producer. If they can prove that they're an independent agent, you might want to, drop it to $9.99.
Yeah, I know. I don't think maybe they did it this year. I know they did it last year, but they did that sponsorship thing. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
I think agents could sign up and then like carriers would sponsor them and actually pick up the cost. I don't know if they did that this year, but maybe that was their intent behind it.
They did. I saw that.
Or just do a cover band for the last day instead of paying washed up, 90s pop singers.
Hey,
or 80 rappers.
We won't go into details here, but we would have Richard in our back pocket. I heard he plays a mean
big harmonica guy these days.
Also, his favorite's Kenny G.
Uh-oh. I knew that was going to come up.
No, I think that, hey, maybe that's all things they're hearing, and hopefully it improves next year. But I'm definitely looking forward to next year from what I saw this year.
Is it Caesars next year? Do they, for some reason, I want to say are Caesars, or is it, have you announced where it's going to be?
I don't know. I think he might have, but I
haven't seen anybody.
But yeah, I found that was a nice spot. The only problem was the location. It was way on the other end, but good spot. So overall, it sounds like we all agree. Great opportunity, for networking, meeting other parts of the industry, a lot more agents there, great sessions. So, I think overall they did a really nice job and looking forward to the next one. Now the fun stuff. So, Will, you brought it up. What was the most fun you had?
It's got to be the intro to the $1,000 steak Richard ordered.
Who would do such a thing?
I felt like I was in the movie Purge with the siren going off, and I was like, "Oh."
You make bad decisions in Vegas.
What an experience! No, that was cool. What was that? Poppy steak?
Yeah, poppy steak.
Yeah.
If you're looking for poppy steak, buy the $1,000 steak. It is a sight. It is a fun experience. It's delicious. It's stupid, and probably only need to do it once in your life. But make sure you play.
Well, it caught a lot of big executives' attention because I saw a lot of rubbernecking coming from a few tables. I've got people that can easily afford a $1,000 steak if they wanted it, but
yeah. Which for those listening, you're gonna have to look this up on video. You got to see this for yourself. It's pretty impressive. It's a bit ridiculous, but like take a carrier or just treat yourself one time. You got to enjoy the experience.
And it really was an experience. They did a really good job of delivering a steak to your table into something that was not going to be forgotten.
Well, I mean, everything else we ate was better than the steak.
Yeah,
That
well,
was amazing. And they're playing gangster rap the whole night. It was awesome.
it was just a fun atmosphere. That was a blast. I will say this you guys will find this funny. So I got to think about it afterwards. I'm like, all right, I just by chance, because obviously my flight was delayed. I missed my other dinner. I by chance was fortunate enough to join you guys. But then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. We've talked about this. We had that great time in Dallas. We did that amazing dinner, and ever since then, we're like, hey, we got to repeat that dinner. We've got to do that again. So then we're all coming to Vegas. We're like, hey, we got to get together. I'm like, well, I can't Monday night. I have a dinner. So Will sends out an invitation that goes, hey, everybody, I got reservations on Monday night. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. And I say, I can't make it. And instead of getting what day are you available? Let's figure this out. Let's reschedule. Will just goes, sorry, I guess you're going to miss out on the steak. And I'm like, hold on. That's like cool. No.
Hey, I knew it was going to work out. I knew Delta wasn't going to sell me and you're going to be delayed. I'm good to go.
Yeah, like I knew I was good to go.
Well, quick plug for the Dallas restaurant. If you're in Dallas, go to Knife Steakhouse.
Yeah.
I noticed you guys all got together at Knife Steakhouse in Dallas, and yet the one guy who lives there, I wasn't invited. So let's not gloat over your wonderful steak.
We do have to change that next time, Andy. We got to do it again.
All right.
New group.
Yeah. All right. I like it.
What did we have there? It was 180-day aged ribeye. Some days
45 or something.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow.
Longest I'd ever heard of. It was like little baby shriveled up steak, but it was amazing. Good stuff. That was fun. Did you guys go to any of the cocktail receptions, or we'll have to talk about the closing party too?
I missed the closing party. I headed back. I had a baseball game to coach, but how did that go?
Was anybody else there?
Obligations. I was like, I got to go.
Andy, were you there?
I was there.
Yeah, well, you were both there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had dinner and then went over there. What did you think?
It was a hoot. I thought it was fun. I mean, I'm probably not in 90s boy bands, but yeah, no, I thought it was funny. It was just silly. Not something I would do at my age, going and listening to that and dancing to that. But no, it was fun.
Yeah. I will say it was entertaining. I don't know. Like, I think back to a few years ago when they did it. Remember, Will, we were at the pool.
Yep.
And that was a great 90s. I mean, rap, some of the best back then.
Tom Lowe was there.
What's that?
Tom Lowe. Yeah, Tom Lowe.
Yeah. No, the best was that was the first year that after Jesse had sold it, and Jesse and I have been good friends forever. He calls me. He's like, man, what are they doing? Who is this Tone Loc? I'm like, yeah, dude, it's Tone Loc. I'm like, everyone's excited for Tone Loc. Like, I'm in full support of,
Hey, Rob Bass, DJ Easy Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good lineup. And then you fast forward to this time. And I mean, hey, somebody paid a lot of money to put that on. So I don't want to complain too much. But I mean, it was a little cheesy when you're talking like, what was it, like O-Town? And I mean, literally guys that didn't have
1/5 of O-Town.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't like those bands even had good songs back when we were young enough to enjoy them. So it was like, all right. But it was still, I mean, it was entertaining.
Just for the ladies.
Yeah. Well, maybe that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that like there's new young blood, right?
Yeah.
We used to be the youngest people in the room, and now we're not.
Sure.
And, I mean, there was a lot of young people that grew up on that music.
Yeah.
That was, our, we were professionals when that stuff was coming out.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. It was still fun. And then,
giving them the benefit of the doubt, Jason.
What's that?
Giving them the benefit of the doubt.
No, I appreciate that.
You also just called us all professional. Thank you for that, Richard.
Yeah. And you just made us sound really freaking old.
One time only, gentlemen. One time only.
We're still like middle of the pack, Richard. We're not that old yet.
Somebody got to catch up to me.
And then I know Will and I, we were at a pretty cool cocktail reception deal. I don't know what you guys were doing. You guys obviously didn't get invited, but it's
we're not big time enough.
I got invited to a bunch. I would walk in, kind of check out to see if it was worth hanging around. I'm like, yeah, this looks like a big bore. So I'd go to another one.
Yeah.
And we're pouring Weller 12 with this one. So me and Jason are.
Dude, they had a nice open bar. They had crab, lobster. I mean, you name it. And they've done this a couple of years, and Will and I still are trying to figure out how we got on the invite list, but I'm glad we are. So,
yeah, we keep going. We're not stopped going because it's a nice event.
Yeah, we know it's coming.
Yeah.
We had one of the carriers invited us to the Brazilian steakhouse. So that might have been where I was for some of those receptions. That I'm not kidding you. I think there was 100 people.
That's
like,
a big one.
There's that many people. I don't know how much they spent, but it had to be 20, 30 grand.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Agents, I saw a couple carrier people. I'm like, anyway, yeah,
yeah. But no, they did. I mean, all the side stuff going on, which, if someone's listening, you guys attend. I mean, that's the fun stuff. And then, like you said, Richard, just the center bar. Everyone, from the industry went down there at least one night, just to hang out, have some drinks, see everybody that we know, meet the carrier people, see what carriers all these reps are working for now, all that good stuff. So it was a fun.
I just remember Will going to bed at like 9:45 both nights, being like, I'm out, tired.
I started her.
I don't think he went to bed. He was just telling us that.
Yeah. Find another blackjack table.
No, good times, good trip. So, well, that's all I had on that. You guys have anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah.
That was good.
All right. Good. When we move on, then, obviously one of the hot topics there, I think one of the hot topics amongst the industry right now, from a Medicare standpoint, is all this CMS regulations coming in. I mean, I think there's different ones that may concern us each independently and to some degree a bit differently. But I think the big one that was obviously being talked about amongst all the FMOs, all the carriers, I think there were even some CMS people down at Medicarians, was, of course, the adjustment to commissions or their view of TPMOs, FMOs, should they be commissionable, should they not? And I think, at the event, we walked away with a pretty clear feeling, at least I did, after my discussions with some of those larger entities and other, top tier FMOs and ownership, is that, we should, and probably in the mind of the carrier from a legal perspective, that this messaging or how it was written is a bit vague and should still allow FMOs to function under their same platform and commissionable schedule like we have, on a per enrollment basis. What amount that means, we don't know, but they felt like we were, and maybe some of the original language specifically cut out, and then maybe the newer interpretation, we weren't really cut out to the same degree, or they weren't as specific about us. I mean, what did you guys walk away from with your conversations or feeling about some of the new rules that have been introduced?
Well, I'll jump in. So there's a couple things that jump out to me. Obviously, there's still stuff we don't know. But one thing, or two things really, but one is about the agent. And CMS clearly seems to be saying there's just too much loose money being thrown around, and that they wanted the fair market value commission to the agent being kind of an all-in number instead of, well, it's all in except they can do these, surveys and get an extra $50, trying to sort of limit all this extra fluff that's thrown around the industry in terms of compensation. I think one of the things, though, that I'm going to disagree with some of the others, that some people seem to walk away from it feeling like, well, the FMOs, they're all fine and they're in the same position. And I don't know that I agree completely. I certainly don't see the regulators looking to come after their hump. But I still feel like they're wanting to get more control around the industry. So I'll just give you a personal example. For the first time, we received a TPMO security, a system security audit for a carrier. Never had one. I don't know if this is sort of the beginning. They claimed that this was just a arbitrary, that they were starting to audit TPMOs. or seeing if they need the appropriate security measures of their systems.
Mm-hmm.
And good news is, we have all that infrastructure and pass with no problem. But I'm again looking and thinking to myself, I can't imagine every TPMO could pass this audit. I just can't believe that they all have the kind of technology and infrastructure that I've built. And, I don't know, does that mean that carriers are going to say that if you can't do these certain things, then you can't be a TPMO? I think those are the kinds of things. I don't know that there's necessarily a direct attack on overrides. I just wonder if there's going to be greater scrutiny on what a TPMO is. What does it really do? What are its responsibilities? And in particular, what carriers' roles are in ensuring that it doesn't, again, become this crazy environment that everybody's throwing resources and money around. So I realize everybody's like hooping and hollering, like, hey, FOs are all free and clear. Everybody, keep doing what you're doing. Not exactly sure it's going to work out that way.
Only they kicked the can. I feel like, they just kind of kept it status quo for right now because I think they want to see what happens in the election in November. From that, I think it could be a completely different world 12 months from now, 14 months from now.
Well, and let's face it, obviously, this is important to us. 3 of us are FMOs here. This does make up a portion of our income, which helps us provide the services and pay the people that we employ. So it is important. I would say since that meeting, I think it was clear, or at least it was being portrayed that we understood it to some degree, things were okay. And since then, I've had discussions with carriers, even as recently as this week, stating that they still don't know how to interpret it. And that's where, too, for anybody listening, be careful. I've seen organizations put out news and information stating that they know what's going on, or this is how it's being interpreted. This is how it's going to come out. And we really don't know. I mean, if I'm talking to carriers, they're trying to figure this out so they can do their filing and they don't know, trust me, whoever these, agencies are or smaller organizations who are just trying to, build some hype, they have no clue. I mean, ultimately, we can all read the same thing. We may have different interpretations. We might be talking to some other, maybe we're talking to even some legal counsel, or we're talking to other FMOs. They have gotten legal counsel. We still don't know. And we don't even know when the interpretations, if they're going to be consistent with every carrier, if everyone's going to get together and say, hey, let's do it all this way so that at least the industry moves forward consistently. We don't know if it's all going to be different carriers filing it different ways, interpreting it different ways. One carrier wants to pay us, the other one doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I think we're still at that stage. I think they've all submitted for some clarification. We might get some clarification by the end of this month, but a lot of that stuff is still up in the air. The only thing that we know for a fact is that they increased the comp on the agent side and said to carriers, hey, either pay this comp or you can't pay comp at all. That's my understanding. But I think that digs into the budget that the carriers were using. I know the carriers are concerned about their benefits, additional responsibilities. I mean, they're juggling a lot of things. And then this commission thing kind of comes and they go, okay, well, now how do we handle this? Because we got to pay the agent more, but yet we were maybe utilizing the FMO for a multitude of services and support. Some carriers rely on the FMOs to pay their commissions and do their contracting and really act as almost a TPA or their back office. You can't cut those people out. I mean, it's a vital, part of what they're doing. So, I mean, and again, there's so much gray area. I really don't know either. I think I thought we had some progress. And now with some of the clarifications, I feel like we went backwards a couple steps to where we're kind of unclear again.
Well, I think it's going to be very similar to 2009. Remember when MIPA came out and they changed everything? I think it'll be August, late August, early September. We'll finally find out what the deal is. Until then, it's everyone's best guess. But I mean, my fear is, this would happen to us in 2009. We went out and spent a ton of money expecting to get it back and didn't get anything back. And I got all the commissions were cut in half for the agents. So I don't think they'll impact the agents per se, but definitely from a GA, SGA, FMO, NMO perspective, be careful what you spend. Anticipating.
So what do you think will be the collateral damage? I mean, come on, there's always collateral damage. We don't know who or where, but who do you think are some likely? So I'll just throw one out, and I don't know if this is even related. Did you guys hear about what happened to Assurance IQ this week?
or they just closed their doors this week.
So here's Assurance IQ, gets bought by Prudential for $2+ billion 5 years ago. And then this week announces not that they sold it, but they just shuttered the thing. They just shut the whole thing down and fired everybody.
Yeah, what, 1,200 agents or so, I heard?
Yep. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm not paying that close attention, and certainly call centers are going to continue to be challenged. But what other collateral damage might there be in our world if Assurance IQ and Prudential spends $2 billion on it and still says it's not viable and shuts the thing down?
Yeah.
Don't think that the big guys can't fail. They absolutely.
I think too, we all got to be honest too about their structure. I mean, let's face it, when you start talking to these, high, volume, lead aggregators. I mean, these guys are talking about pumping in thousands of leads into these organizations at, $30 to $50 a shot. And, their CPA cost per acquisitions, at 300 or something. I mean, that's just not you can't continue to function with that model. And I think, and maybe this is where the ruling has created some problems for these call centers, they were being funded ahead of time by most of these carriers. These carriers were writing huge checks saying, hey, we'll fund that cost per acquisition. Here's, a few $1 million. And all of a sudden, if that goes away, I mean, handwriting's on the wall. Who's going to fund that? Because you can't continue to pay that much for leads, or at least at that volume, when you're only getting a few $100.
So, Richard, how do you think the FTC rule with respect to leads, and basically all leads need to be sort of exclusive, how do you think that would affect Assurance IQ, which we already know what happened there, and potentially some of these others that seem like are on kind of shaky ground?
It's huge. So, we're really well positioned in that we've only played in the exclusive realm forever. I've never sold a shared lead once because we've always functioned on the what would you do to your grandma rule. And the last thing I would ever have is 5 people calling my grandmother in the same 30-minute time period, right? So the shared lead option and these, dollar leads and age leads and these things, that's gone. And in my opinion, it should be gone. Mm-hmm. Right. And so when you're going back to the call centers, the other costs that you have, so you have these, you've got massive infrastructure, right? You're paying a ton for your phone bill and software leasing. So your hard costs are significant. But, the biggest one is you have salaried people. Yeah. And if you can't have them on the phone, then you're just burning cash. Yeah. We've looked at, the call center model, numerous times, as a business model. And I'm like, man, you got to have so much gasoline constantly pumping into this thing that, unless you're, a carrier where you're making the top comp and you're paying, a reasonable salary, I don't see how it would work.
Yeah, I agree.
Going back to the ruling, what we've been most interested in is how are the funds that you guys are allotted, are you allowed to allocate to your agents? Because, at least 50% of our orders are co-opt, right? There's 2 or 3 people paying the bills for lead orders. And so I have a call tomorrow with an entity that is, from one of the top 3. And we're trying to, what's that?
One of the big 3 families.
Exactly. And we're trying to wade through it and their interpretation and our interpretation. And how do they continue to do what they've done for years to support their agents? Because, ultimately this business, at least for, the group on this podcast, is that, we're all built by individual agents doing their jobs and being able to support them, right? As much as we get carrier and FMO and, IMO support, it all comes down is the rubber meets the road at the agent. Mm-hmm. And the agent being able to, Zoom appropriately or, get to the living room, et cetera. And without that support, these agents are going to have a real tough time because, funding the full lead budget for a lot of people, that is a big expense. And we all know that leads are getting more expensive. Yeah. Internet leads, direct mail, postage continues to go up. It's just, you guys have maintained, you guys guarantee what, 5% returns? 5%, like all your money back. Thanks, Jason. let's get that on tape. Yeah, cool. That's like hanging out with your friends.
Jason, I told you not to tell nobody about my deal. Okay?
That's right. Yeah. Don't use Will's
Another
name.
deal?
Will gets free access to events. He gets 5% returns on his leads. I mean, he's got the.
Call my office and say Will Smallwood, man. That's everything.
What the Will Smallwood piece?
Which is funny.
Based on the Polaroid cameras, all I can say.
Because with the lead program I'm working with, I'm going to make Richard rich, and somehow Richard's making Will rich. I'm still struggling a little bit as to how this dynamic is supposed to work.
It always comes back to Smallwood.
Yeah. Hey, Andy's
sometimes you just have to accept the reality of the life. All right.
Andy's paying for the steak next year.
Yeah, Darren feels that way.
No, it's good. But sorry, did I cut you off, Richard? Go ahead.
No. I mean, I think that the challenge is, and to Will's point, I think that every year we should plan on this being different. Mm-hmm. And I think that from a business owner perspective, you've got to plan on every year being more expensive. We're seated across all aspects of our life, right? Everything's a little bit more expensive. Yeah. The way that I look at these regulations is it's just continuing to make it harder.
Yeah.
Whereas, 7 years ago when MA really started to take off, and especially the low income stuff, we really weren't not guaranteeing, but, we were getting 5% response left and right. We were generating, $8 direct mail leads that our agents were converting 25% of. Mm-hmm. Like, those were the gravy days. It was so easy for everyone. Now, now, I mean, what's his name? The football player. Come on.
Joe Namath?
Yeah, Joe Namath ruined it for everyone.
Yeah.
Those ads tighten screws on everything because, it just wasn't kosher, right? And they got popped for it. And I think we're seeing a ton of trickle down effects from those campaigns and from the time of when low income was so easy that, here we are. We're all getting, everyone, all the way from me as a vendor to your agents, to you guys, to the carriers, to becoming a more expensive business. Doesn't mean you still can't, have a really profitable and prosperous, experience here, but it's just getting harder.
Well, all the more reason why I think we kind of started, Jason, this whole podcast by talking about the importance of diversification. Maybe that's why there was so much interest in ACA, because while ACA is regulated, it's not regulated the way Medicare is, and all of these other types of opportunities. It might just be a flight from the regulation, might be driving some of the FMOs and certainly driving some of the agents, which is your observation that you saw a lot more on the under 65. We're surprised about how much under 65 activity there was. So we're certainly looking at it that way.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about being independent. That's the great thing about not being owned by Wall Street is we can just pivot in a different direction. And if Medicare is tighter, more difficult, more expensive, that's okay. We got so many great opportunities. Why just keep getting your nose bloody?
That's true.
If only the ACA paid as well as Medicare. That's the only thing I wish.
Right.
But I mean,
I think.
But there are opportunities in the under 65 market that pay better than Medicare. It just isn't ACA.
Right.
I mean, that's the tricky part. I was just having a call this morning with a bunch of agents, and I'm like, look, only way to make money in the ACA space is you got to have massive scale. But then you have to have the infrastructure in place to deal with the thousands of members that you might have. Mm-hmm. So if that's the game, most agents are going to lose. Yeah. They're very, very difficult to maintain a book of 1,000 ACA clients because of all the service work that's involved. But if you don't have 1,000 ACA clients, then you're not really making the kind of money that you'd like to make. So that's the tricky thing. You got to be able to do more than just ACA.
Well, I think because we're going to get a little bit into that, short-term medical, maybe we'll include just ACA in there. Before we jump to that, I think the one question you posed, Andy, which I don't think we answered, is can we still pay for those items? Can we co-op leads? Can we do, I believe, and you guys tell me what you've heard, I believe I've heard we're no longer allowed to contribute to most of those things. Like, we cover our agents AHIP, we've covered E&O, we've covered other business expenses, which was originally under a co-op provision, or at least that was okay to do. And now we can't do that from my understanding. I think we have to eliminate those. That was the whole purpose of CMS saying, hey, we're going to add an extra $100 into your commission. You guys now have to pay for those expenses as a business. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, what do you guys know about that?
I mean, my first question about that, Jason, is what are because the money really comes from the carriers, right? We all agree that's where it's originated. So if the carriers are looking at this reg saying, hey, we can't contribute to agents' marketing anymore, well, why would they give the money to the FMOs? Like, unless they're just trying to be Mr. Nice Guy or something. If the money can't trickle down to the agent, the carrier is going to say, okay, well, we're going to stop providing those marketing dollars. And if they stop providing it, well, guess what? Jason, Will, and Andy are going to stop providing it too, because that's where it's coming from. It's not like we have this extra money tree out back to fund agents marketing. It really trickles down from the carrier. So I think that's...
I understand. I think they're doing it. Are they doing some kind of hourly reimbursement for administrative costs?
I haven't heard that at all.
I haven't heard that one either.
Yeah, someone came to me and was telling me their interpretation is they're going to pay around anywhere from $12 to $15 per hour for any administrative.
So I was getting to track that.
That's what I said. That's an accounting nightmare.
I mean, if we think back to where we all believe this problem came from, I think we have different, maybe versions, or each year it could be different. But I mean, ultimately, those things we were paying for, is there really anything wrong with that? I mean, I think that's good, or a good part of a healthy FMO relationship and services. I think what happened is they used, or bad actors out there used that to essentially just pump money to the agent to say, hey, go sell my product or sell this product and I'll pay you more. Now, I do believe most independent agents, I mean, the independent agents we work with and are partners with, they will still do what's right for the client. They're not going to sell a bad program just because they're getting a few extra dollars if it harms their client. I mean, that's their business. That's their relationship. So I think CMS is wrong by thinking that a few extra dollars completely dictated. But did it maybe motivate some agents? If all things were equal and the agent said, hey, this company's buying my leads, I'm going to give them the business. But if all things are equal, you're not doing anything wrong. So what's the big deal? So I feel like there were some bad actors that were, instead of building out a more robust platform of services, they were just going to agents, because I have it in my market too, just bad organizations that go in, no service, no support, have no idea what they're doing. But they're like, hey, I'll just pay you an extra $100 or $150 in enrollment. Just come do business with me. And they used it as just a recruiting tactic. And then that agent told another agent, and now agents just walk up to your door with their hand out going, well, how much more are you going to pay me? Because apparently that's now that's what they've become accustomed to. I think that's where more of it's coming from, because CMS looks and goes, well, if you guys aren't using the money for your other services and for your infrastructure, apparently you don't need it that bad because you're just giving it away. And we already had set this cap. I think that was one reason why these problems have been introduced.
Well, what about this one? Go ahead, Will. No, please.
I was going to say the other thing too is these agencies. I mean, I know of agencies that are getting 6 figures just to move their contract. That's like one piece of business, just to say, we're going to move our contract to you and you're going to give me $200,000.
That can't be right.
It's like, NIL money for insurance agents. It was insane if you had a big enough block, or if you had any distribution at all. So I think that hurt us as well.
Yeah, I got some cash offers too. Now who's to say though, that could be coming just from budgets that they've built. I mean, some of these companies have been successful for many years. I mean, that could just be coming out of their own pocket. It doesn't have to come out of MA commissions, but there's there's a lot of those dollars floating around from the carriers into the big FMO's pockets or the call centers. I think that was probably a bigger contributor. If they're paying for those millions of dollars of leads up front, and that call center is only representing your company, well, it's pretty evident they're pushing everybody to your one company. So,
but it's even the carriers. I mean, I would get calls from agents saying, hey, my XYZ carrier rep just called me and said that if I thought I could hit 25 enrollments, they would give me $2,500. Well, okay. The carrier rep never said, well, you have to sell my company. But come on, I mean, it seems to be the definition of a conflict of interest when you're basically saying to the agent, and I'm like, so I asked the agent, like, did you have to provide a plan? And he goes, no. He goes, they electronically transfer the money the same day into my checking account. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that CMS probably doesn't like. So XYZ carrier gives an agent $2,500, no strings attached, and wink, wink says, hey, can you get me 25 enrollments this selling season? Now, the agent's still doing the right thing by the client. But come on, guys, that creates a conflict. That's where CMS is saying, you know what, that's asking too much of an agent to really independently enroll somebody in a plan without that little rep sitting behind them thinking, well, I promised 25. Let me see if I can squeeze this one in. I saw that a lot.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I think, all of our points, are all contributing factors. I think that's what it is. It's just all of them balled together. It just didn't look good. And here we are.
Yeah.
So, well, more to come on that. Obviously, I think we can circle back and do another session once we have more details. But I think we've covered as much as we know, which is a lot of unknowns, a fair amount of speculation. Obviously, we're all having conversations on a daily, weekly basis. But again, there's no definitive answers at this point.
And that's why my recommendation on all of this stuff is agents should just keep their head down. They should just keep going, keep doing their thing. Don't sit around waiting for something to happen. Go with what you know. And what you know right now is business as usual.
Yep, I agree. So a very good point. So we'll move on from that. And again, we'll circle back at another time once we have more details. But what do you guys think about, again, moving into the ACA, the under 65, short-term medical? I know we've been doing more of that the last couple of years. We've had a lot more requests, more agents coming to us saying, hey, I need to incorporate, bring this in. I want to expand. So, again, like we stated earlier, we're excited because we see that industry, that side of it growing. What are you guys seeing? What are you guys running into? I know there's been some changes with the short-term medical. So let's talk about those.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the government's doing everything in their power to force people into the ACA type plans. That's why they initially went after indemnity plans and they realized the ducks a little bit more of a fight than they wanted to go through. So they ended up losing that battle. But it's been rumored for years about the short-term medical, them doing some sort of executive order, mandating, you have to re-enroll or requalify every 3 months. They finally pushed that through, goes into effect in September. And, basically, if you could fog a mirror 12 months out of the year, in a lot of states, you could join an ACA plan. So it's very evident to me that they're really trying to push that agenda, even though like some states, like I know Connecticut only has one option for people. That's it. It's just, and that's where it's a very different world today than it was, say, 20 years ago when you could buy a $500 major medical for your family and things of that sort. Any time of the year, it's a whole different animal that we're seeing. And it's, I don't see it changing anytime soon. I think it's, gotten to the point now where it's, quote unquote, too big to fail. But it is curious to see, between the administrations, that if there is a change in Washington coming up next year, last time it didn't change anything. When I went from Democrat to Republican, we thought, oh, there's going to be all these new options and new plans, and nothing changed. And nothing's changed since then. So it's just becoming more and more restrictive to operate within. But there are some programs that are popping up here and there that are kind of unique. But basically, it's that's why I think we see so many people looking at getting into the ACA, because they finally realize, all right, this isn't going anywhere. Right? It's not a fad for 10 to 15 years. This is here to stay.
Yeah. I agree.
Sure. And I look at it much the same way. I guess I see the under 65 individual market in two buckets. I see the ACA world, which I wouldn't even have called it a bucket a few years ago, to your point, Will, because it was just seemingly like relegated to nothingness. But now it's a significant presence in the marketplace. 20 million Americans have an ACA plan, but there are about 55 million in the overall individual under 65 market. So where I see it is with ACA alternatives, and I think you're going to see more and more of them. Now, granted, short-term medical, certainly is going to be challenged after September the 1st. Again, an agent's listening to this, guys, business as usual. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about September. Just keep selling what you're selling. And short-term medical is a viable option for the right person, especially as an example as a COBRA replacement. That's a short-term product and it's not going to last forever. And short-term medical can work really well if you're in between jobs. But there's other ACA alternatives out there, including fixed benefit products, which you guys know if I've been a champion of for a long time. And then I think the hottest thing that's coming around right now are these association-based, limited partnership-based products. We don't really get involved in the non-insurance products. I know those are out there. I know people sell the ministries and all that. We just have stayed largely out of the co-ops, but I think there's going to be a increasingly interesting market in the under 65. I'm hoping the Richards of the world look at that opportunity and say, we're going to have to jump into that business because the Medicare business will continue to be struggling with all the funding, perhaps, we just talked about. So, Richard, I'd be really interested to see, what could our lead providers help us with to get more prospects?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, we can only do so many things in a week, but it's on our immediate list, and I'm working with a couple people right now on some products that are exactly what you guys are talking about. For effectively, the gig economy workers, which is a growing segment of the country. You look at high earning individuals like real estate agents, for example. These are things that are on our radar that we're working on.
Well, Richard, I'm curious because with Medicare, we tend to find we have maybe a limited. We're maybe a bit more limited on ways to get in front of these people. So direct mail has still been a very popular, successful way. But in the under 65 world, people are on all different platforms. It's, in fact, most of them probably don't look at their mail as often as they look at their social media or their text messages. Are you guys, I know you've been primarily direct mail and you've tried some other internet-driven, SEO-driven type leads, but do you see other ways coming into play that can be successful to drive leads in for this under 65 space? We know that there's multiples of opportunities from gig workers to a whole host of other reasons why people are looking for coverage, but any additional ways you guys can get in front of these people or our agents can get in front of these people aside from just direct mail?
I think you have to look at TikTok these days.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge space. It's becoming more and more cluttered with advertisement over, what I would call, user generated content. So there's still that bridge that has to be met of, getting someone's attention there. And that's really a repeat business where, you've got to be serving those ads, the same population over and over and over again, finally get them to click on some magnet, and the information, the funnel is longer than a direct mail card where they're either calling you or replying in various ways. But, you've got to have a meaningful funnel in place, right? And this, takes work like companies like ours, but also by your agents. So in the process of developing these lead programs is, greater consideration for how the agents are going to react to these. Right, because they're going to have to get put in their constant contacts and have a plan. And this is where, we're going to be reaching out to, people like yourselves, develop a program that's top down that says, look, here's these lead sources. Here's what they're answering. Here's what they're being drawn to, and here are, desirable ways that they want to be contacted. And if you don't get them on the first try, you've got to put them in an email system where, pick a number, every 2 weeks, you send them an email for a period of time. And then you got to pay attention to the one-to-one contacts. And, that's a consideration with disclaimers that we would have to disclose because we aren't the end user of you're consenting that, one individual agent is going to contact you. And that's kind of where some of the languages that we are, uncertain about is that if we're generating leads kind of for the masses, that doesn't have to say, you're going to get a lead from, Smallwood Insurance,
right?
Or, an individual agent, that's in this state. So, there are considerations there, and you can, run the programs where, let's just take Facebook ads because it's a little bit easier to, kind of dive through is that, I can run like an A, B, C, D campaign where the A's have, American Eagle on it, Smallwood's company, and then, North American Life, right? So, you can label it because those considerations, that's a big deal that's coming of identifying who you're going to hear from. Yeah. And my understanding is that it could be, an agent with, North American Life plans, versus, it's got to be, Andy Dasher's name has got to be on there.
Right.
Well, those are some of the things that we're looking for clarification on, and figure out exactly what those parameters are, because I don't think that they're a big deal. You just want to get it right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually think that there's some real benefit to that. One of the things that we've dealt with for a long time is trying to help agents overcome, caller ID. Right. And I'm like, man, make it say, Will Smallwood, American Eagle Insurance Services, have it be as transparent as possible. I'm a huge fan of transparency. Put your prices out there, make it as easy for a consumer or, in the business to business side, for someone to say yes, tell them everything now. Like, hiding prices, I don't think is a good thing. Yeah. And hiding who you are, I don't think is a good thing. So,
those are all good points. Well, and frankly, you brought up a lot, and I don't want to get too far off base, but when it comes to TikTok, other lead marketing strategies, I think obviously we could do a whole session on that alone, and have you lead us down your world, and us give input. I mean, when you say TikTok, I'm not as familiar with it, but I do know some of our agents are successfully driving leads from TikTok, so it is possible. But maybe we'll do a whole session. We'll dig into those in more detail and give some ideas. So that's great. We started down that path, obviously talking about under 65, great opportunities, maybe great lead opportunities to get you in front of more people. Anything else going on that industry that agents are going to want to know about, either be from on market, off marketplace, limited medical products? What are you guys seeing being sold out there? What's the talk of the town when it comes to agents?
I mean, for me, I would just go back, Jason, to what I was saying a minute ago. I think agents shouldn't listen to the government and think that there's a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
Just say it that way. Now, whether you think a fixed benefit product is the alternative, whether you think it's a short-term medical or one of these ACA alternative metal plans, I'll certainly open to discussion as to which is, the best alternative. I just think agents are making a mistake if they think ACA is the only way to go. It's kind of like in the old days, right? We used to have agents that say, oh, I won't sell Medicare Advantage. MedSup is I'm only going to sell MedSup, right? And we know what happened to those people. They were short-sighted and they didn't realize that the consumer wanted to know what their options were. I guess that's really what I'm getting out of the under 65 space. I think consumers want to know what options there are. Here in Texas, we have one of the biggest ACA markets. There are not one single PPO on the exchange in any county in the entire state. Not one. So if you're a Texan and you believe you want the freedom to see your own doctor, well, if you're on the exchange, your answer is you can't. There are no options for a single person to get a PPO on the exchange. However, off exchange and with all ACA alternatives, those are almost all PPOs. So if nothing else, agents in my mind need to be able to say, here are the HMO options. Here's what an HMO is, and here's how it works. Here are the PPO options. Unfortunately, they're not going to ever intersect. In Texas, if you're wanting an HMO, it's only on the exchange. If you're wanting a PPO, it's only with an alternative, and they don't ever overlap. And I think that's where agents have to really understand that don't listen to the regulators saying ACA is the only way to go. That's not what the American public is saying. They want options, and they want to be able to know that you're offering them solutions that fit them. There is no one size fit all, and I'll stop soon.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Baskin Robbins has 32 flavors.
That's it.
Did they up it? Is it 32? I thought it was 31.
Maybe it is 31.
I was going to say, I got to go try that new flavor.
If I know Smallwood, he's probably getting a cut on that 30 seconds. So right now, I just want to be Will Smallwood's little brother someday, just so I could figure out how he's monetizing everything.
1% of everything.
That's it.
Well, Will, and then we'll probably, I think we're about hitting our time and we can wrap up. But Will, I know you're involved from your standpoint on a number of products going on in that space. What do you see?
I mean, I think Andy hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's different options for different people. I mean, if you've got somebody that's 23 years old or 27 years old making $45,000 a year that doesn't even go to a doctor, put them on an ACA plan. They're going to get it for free. I mean, they're crazy not to. But if you've got somebody that's 42 with a family making $300,000 a year, and they have a health condition or a child or something, they want to go to certain doctors, certain hospitals, then my God, please look at the other alternative options that are out there. Because most people just think, it's health insurance, and especially from a consumer standpoint, there hasn't been all the publicity of HMO that wasn't. I mean, I grew up in the 90s. Everything was, Clinton, HMO, everything was driven. I mean, that was all over the news every day, HMO. And nowadays, I don't think people really think about it because they got so accustomed to having PPO, especially through their employers, that they don't realize that if you're on the exchange, I mean, there's a very high probability you're only having HMO, and you better make damn sure you got a doctor you love or have seen for 20 years that they're a member of that network. Otherwise, you're in for a rude awakening after the fact.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of alternatives. I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, limited benefit plans that are strong out there. They've been out there. And from an agent standpoint, if you're not selling that kind of stuff, I don't know how you're surviving, because that's really where the money is. I mean, sell the ACA when it's needed. But my God, have your full portfolio available to you so that you can actually make some real money selling some of these other ancillary products, indemnity products, ERISA products, or whatnot that are out there, because they pay well. They pay a lot better than $15 PMPM. I can assure you that.
Absolutely.
Are you guys having a hard time training agents on those products and getting them to move over to that mindset that you just talked about, Will?
Not really. I mean, because a lot of them are coming hungry. A lot of the agents we've recruited recently are people who sold health insurance in the past, got out of it, went into the Medicare market, and feel like it's, the pendulum's kind of swinging back the other way towards the under 65, and they're wanting to get back into it. So they have a basis of understanding how it works. It's just educating them on what's available, and really, more importantly, what not to do, who not to sign up for these types of programs, and who to really try to target for those.
We've just been doing it for so long, Richard. I'm just not sure that we had to do a lot of, reconditioning or conditioning. We've been talking about the under 65 market as long as I can remember. We've been talking about alternatives to ACA as long as I can remember. We sort of positioned ourselves as a clearinghouse for individual health insurance, whether it's under 65 or over 65. So that consistency of our message, I think, has helped us. I remember one time, I don't know how many years ago it was, Jason says, "Hey, why don't you come up to Michigan and talk to agents about alternatives to the ACA?" So yeah, we had a fun week together where we were just talking to agent after agent after agent. And we've been doing it ever since then. I think that's really important. I think that's important for agents too. They got to have consistency to that message. If you're going to be able to do both under 65 and over 65, take the time to learn it and understand it and make sure you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think, how I would answer that question, because our base of agents is maybe a little bit different than Andy's. He's been kind of pro under 65, really pushing that for many years now. We've kind of gotten reactivated the last couple of years. And, so you got to catch yourself back up. And I think that's where some of the agents are coming from. Either they used to do it and maybe they're getting back into it, or maybe it's brand new for them. They've always just done Medicare. They've always been kind of a monoline type, agent that stayed in their lane. And now they're seeing their lane needs to widen.
Yeah.
So I know our team spent quite a bit of time training, educating, getting them marketplace certified, all the things you need to have. And let's face it, which is good for all of us, and we can get into this later on in more details, is there's so many new products on the market now to service different needs. To Will's point, you might be in one situation and setting, well, that requires something, and your needs change, your age changes, your income changes. Now you have a whole different set of needs. You have a family to worry about, new set of needs. So I think there's so many products to talk about that service all of these different needs, that it's just getting the agents both comfortable if they're activating in this space, but also familiar with the new options, whether it be limited medical, marketplace, you name it. There's just a lot out there, which is great. It's helping the consumer. Maybe it's saving them some dollars. It's giving agents tons of opportunities. It's just understanding it, and then they need to do something with it. That was a good rap.
That was an excellent rap. I don't have anything to add.
No,
other than Will Smallwood is making all the money.
Will talks about mailbox money. I think he's got the biggest mailbox I've probably ever seen in my life.
Got it.
Just somewhere different than my wife goes and gets the mail from. I'm sure.
I thought it was a garage. She's like, no, that's my mailbox from my mailbox money.
It's not a good.
Hey, I'm just striving to be like Richard Buffkin. That's all I want to be. If I grow up to be him, I'll be a happy man.
That's where you don't need a mailbox because people take care of it and you just get to jet set all over it.
Yeah. You just get to enjoy Monterey, California.
No, I think that was great. I feel like we hit a lot of good topics. All of us are experts in these areas. We work with agents every single day that are either successfully doing them or wanting to get into that space and become successful. And that's what our teams do. We have those platforms, we have those products, we have all of those options. So for somebody who wants to learn more about those or lead generation, how they can turn that on, obviously here's a successful group of people that are involved in that space every single day. So we're the ones you'd want to reach out to. So, hey everyone, that's a wrap for this episode of Insurance Buddies. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts.
Want more? Subscribe to stay in the loop for the next exciting episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a review on Google under Insurance Advisors Direct.